Let's get into it now. A spoiler-free movie review of Final Destination Bloodlines, taking us back to the franchise that has traumatized us all. The reason I never got into a tanning bed, aside from the fact that I'm Mexican and have a perfectly brown complexion, debatable, but also the reason why anytime on a highway I cannot drive behind any 18-wheeler hauling things that are only held down by chains. We all remember the infamous scene from Final Destination 2 where all the logs come crashing down and killing a whole bunch of people on the highway. It's also the reason that some people have a fear of flying, roller coasters, or even gymnastics. And this was said to be one of the best movies in the franchise, taking us back to the very beginning. So what this movie is about, you have a college student who is having these freaky visions. He is picturing these people on top of this restaurant. It's very fancy at the top of like a huge skyscraper building. And she is plagued by this memory and trying to figure out its source, and then starts asking questions to her family. And then she discovers, well, a dark hidden family secret. And in order to break down the cycle of death that is after her entire family, she has to go seeking answers to find the only person who can help her break this curse. So by no means is this movie breaking away from the formula of a Final Destination movie. It really ramps up the violence, because in that opening scene, it just kind of reminds you how they have no regard for humanity. Death doesn't care who you are. And I think that is what I enjoyed the most about Bloodlines, is it doesn't matter if you're old, if you're young, if you're white, if you're black, it doesn't matter. Death is going to take you out because it has no regard for the human life. And I think that is what was so shocking about the opening scene, where you just see people getting obliterated. Now, overall in Bloodlines, I think they ran out of creativity. It is hard. This is the 6th movie in the franchise. I think all the great deaths have been done. So I go to these movies because in its history, it has had me change the way I approach things. Like I was mentioning earlier, it has these moments where we start to associate these movies with the reasons we don't do certain things, like put our hand down a garbage disposal, is because how these movies have traumatized us. But I think they have covered them all, because there weren't any of those moments really in this movie. There was one really tense scene where they start foreshadowing all the things that could take you out, and a lot of it is focused on things inside your house, and that just freaks me out, because I think, man, if I just don't leave my house, I'll be good and sheltered and comforted right here. But this even tells you, like, man, there's so many ways you can die in a house, so many ways you could die in a hospital. So it does freak you out in those ways. But by no means does it have another tanning bed scene. Does it have another log scene? They even have a lot of references to things they've done in the past. So it's kind of an ode to the franchise as a whole, more so than, okay, here is a breath of fresh air and all these new ideas. But that doesn't mean it's not enjoyable, because if you go into this movie knowing exactly what it is, I think you're going to have a pretty good time. It is the Fast and Furious of horror, where you're not going into these movies expecting great acting. And that is hard for me, because the acting level in this movie is that of a really good college student film, where if my friend in college made this movie, I would think, man, you're going to go on to be huge. You're going to be the best director in Hollywood, because that level of acting is there. But for the acting standard I come to expect in a horror movie, it's really not there. But I have to remember that you can't go to these movies expecting things to be really based in reality, expecting people to act in the way that you and I would. You have to expect almost a live action cartoon that is really dark and twisted, because the acting is not there. The story is really not there. I hate the trope in horror movies of somebody younger stumbling upon a family secret and then having to drive out somewhere to find answers and talk to somebody who has a vast history of all this knowledge and the true secret behind the story and has been hiding all these family secrets. I hate that trope, because it's so annoying and so redundant and so focused on just telling you the story as opposed to showing you. Overall, the story in Final Destination Bloodlines just didn't connect for me. I don't think it was really supposed to, but I think if that would have been there, this movie could have had a chance to go good, dumb, fun. to something great. And I think that would have caught a lot of people by surprise. But I don't think that's really what they were going for, because this movie really falls off in the third act where you don't even care about these characters anymore. And it becomes so focused on just kind of finishing out the story and doing the same things it has done in the past. Maybe a little bit better directing and overall performances, it would have been there. A lot of times it was just frustrating and unbelievable, which I get it. These movies are supposed to be ridiculous, bloody, and be a total turn off your brain and just enjoy it for what it is. But I just saw some wasted potential there. And all that aside, say you're just going into this for brutal kills, the overall effects on them are over the top, but in a way that looks a little bit cheap. If you go back to 2000 when this movie debuted, they had a little bit more style to them. So I just feel that, why are we still in this position where our special effects are getting such a downgrade? But overall, the best performance in this movie goes to 71-year-old stunt performer Yvette Ferguson, who broke the record for the oldest person to be on fire in a movie. So you have this big fiery disaster happening on top of this 400-foot tower, and you see Yvette Ferguson, who came out of retirement to do this scene, being lit on fire. I'm talking full body burn in a silver dress. That was the best moment of that opening scene. There were those moments that even forced me to look away, because anytime somebody has something impaled, I don't care who you are, it's just hard to take in. So I will give this movie points for making me feel squeamish, because there were times that I was like, oh, I don't want to see this person go through this. And also give it points because after I left the theater, I was so paranoid. I didn't really think the movie affected me that much, but walking down the hall of the movie theater, and in the Regal I go to, you have to go up and down a really big escalator. And I was getting on that thing like, all right, anybody behind me? Is there any chance this thing is going to suck me in? Because that was always the myth growing up, that don't play on the escalator because it'll eat you up and you'll get pushed under that thing. And if you watch this movie, you know, oh man, the body can be contorted in really weird ways. And that was the last thing I wanted to happen to me after leaving this movie. Even driving home, I was like, okay, no cars coming. The light is green. I'm good to go. It made me paranoid. So it will affect the way you think for a little bit. It will make you not want to leave the house, but then you'll be in the house thinking, man, there's so many things in here that can take me out. Where does it rank among the franchise? I really dipped out of these movies about Final Destination 4. I think 3 was the last really great one. Overall, 3 had the best kills. Final Destination 2 had the most memorable kills with the log scene. A rare case for me where the first one isn't the best one, but 4 and 5 were pretty unmemorable. So I think Bloodlines is probably right above those two. I've seen better special effects in movies that cost less than this. I feel like a lot of it was spent in that opening scene, which really takes you by surprise, but never really gets back to that level of excitement. But overall, if you don't take it too seriously, you don't expect really great acting, and you just want to see a bunch of people die in really ridiculous ways, and you've been a fan of the franchise since the year 2000, I think you're gonna have a good time. For me, Final Destination just hasn't been my go-to in the horror genre. It was a pleasant surprise to even know that there was one on the docket to come out this year. I had a pretty decent time, and I gave it a bonus half point for making me feel paranoid, because any movie that evokes an emotion in me that changes my real life, I gotta give credit to. So for Final Destination Bloodlines, I give it 3.5 out of 5 shards of glass.